Welcome to this special edition of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. I'm Wade Matthews, the Be Ready Utah Manager for the Utah Division of Emergency Management. Joining me today in the State of Utah Emergency Operations Center is former Utah Governor Gary Herbert, the founder of Be Ready Utah, on this, the anniversary of the program. Thank you for joining me, Governor.
Well, thank you, Wade, and happy anniversary.
Thank you very much. Yes, today is the day, April 6th, 15 years ago, Be Ready Utah was founded, and it was your idea. So can you tell us a little bit about where did you get that idea?
Well, I can remember it well. It was when I was lieutenant governor. My friend, the lieutenant governor of Louisiana, Mitch Landrieu, invited us, other lieutenant governors, and there's about 2 or 3 of us that went, to come and take a look at the devastation that occurred after Hurricane Katrina and Rita in New Orleans. People maybe remember that. It was very devastating. Over 2,000 homes, destroyed or damaged. And of course, New Orleans is below sea level. And so they got these dikes and they were pierced and filled up like a bathtub.
Yes, I think it was the largest disaster in the United States up to that point.
I think so, and maybe pretty close to the largest even today. It was massive, and we went there, and he took us up in a Black Hawk helicopter. We flew around, we saw the devastation, and then I had a chance to talk to Mitch and say, what happened, what didn't happen. And the bottom line was people were not ready, they were not prepared. And the government wasn't prepared. They were hoping the federal government was going to come and give them relief. And of course, that did not happen very well. And so I came back, and out of that experience said, we need to make sure that we are prepared for whatever. Earthquake, fire, flood, economic downturn. People have asked me about the Be Ready Utah. Be ready for what? Well, fill in the blank. There's probably a lot of options that can fit in there. And so we developed in the Be Ready Utah program out of that event that happened in New Orleans, prompting us to become prepared and Be Ready Utah.
Right, and we do consider ourselves all hazard preparedness for the Utah Division of Emergency Management and Be Ready Utah, which is the outreach program for the Division of Emergency Management. And our purpose is to do just what you intended it, to teach people how to prepare for emergencies and disasters that we face in Utah. So what did it take then to kind of create the program officially at the government level?
Well, the first thing was to understand what needed to happen. Too much of what we see with the government is top down, kind of a dictation, a mandate to those below, when in fact it ought to be more bottom up. The people themselves are in charge, and they ought to also take some of the responsibility. So as you recall, and you look at your history books, you'll find out we talked about have a kit. How do you protect yourself for 72 hours? What are the 12 steps necessary to prepare yourself or your family to be ready? How do you get your kids out of school? How do you meet together? How do you turn off your utilities if you have a natural gas leak? What about medicines? What about elderly people? What about your pets? All those things, step by step of how can we, in fact, have individuals and families be prepared. Then we move to schools. How can the schools be prepared? And then third, to the community at large. And really bottom up, people, individuals, then local governments, then the state, and then maybe the federal government can come in and help pay for some of the bills. But to do it reverse becomes very awkward and very inefficient.
And so shortly after Hurricane Katrina, which was, I think, summer of 2005, we had another incident right here in Utah, I think, that also led to your creation of the Be Ready Utah program as well. The flooding in St. George in spring of 2006, which was 15 years ago this spring. And that also influenced you, did it not, as far as creating?
Yeah, that actually, I think, happened just before Katrina, because we were in office about, a week. And all of a sudden we had these massive floods, kind of a 100-year flood situation down in St. George, where we had about 7 or 8 homes that actually got washed away into the river, and the devastation there was significant. And all of a sudden we were on point for saying, what can we do to help the people in the St. George region? So again, it became very acute that we have these emergencies that come up, and are we ready? Are we prepared? And too often we look to the federal government for our solutions. We should be looking to the state, and really we should be looking to the local cities and counties as the first lines of defense and help. And then we can probably make sure that we work together cohesively to solve the problem. That's what led us to the Be Ready Utah program. And We work with the public safety people, our health department. We ended up having a lady by the name of Renee Murphy that came in and helped us. So we got it developed, and she actually went to work for FEMA and took our same ideas, and they incorporated a lot of this with the FEMA programs now today. So again, another place where Utah let out, and others are now copying what we've done here, and it's worked very well, I think, for our state.
Yeah, absolutely. And Renee Murphy, you mentioned, I think she was my predecessor 2 managers back, and yes, she went on to go to FEMA and do a lot of great things there. And I think she took your vision then and kind of built it, started the foundation, if you will, I guess, of Be Ready Utah. And I know a lot at that in the early stages, it reached out to businesses a lot. It's important for businesses to have a plan and be prepared as well for disasters.
Well, in fact, we had a lot of meetings where we'd bring different stakeholders in and sat around in the conference room and talked about what if and what happens, kind of lay it out and kind of anticipate what would happen. That led to the great shakeout where we prepare for earthquakes and actually go through a drill process and actually role play what would take place and how people would react. But you can imagine if you're a business, if you're a Walmart, all of a sudden you have an earthquake, maybe power is disrupted and people are on a run for, I need to get me a generator, or I need to get fuel, I need to get food. And all of a sudden there's a run on stores. And we've seen it happen in other parts of the country where rioting breaks out, people are smashing windows and snack and grab, and stuff out of their facilities. And so we said to the stores, what are you going to do if this happens? How do you protect yourself against some kind of rioting and overrunning of your store? What about your records? How do you protect your records of your sales and the contracts you've got out there that you need to preserve and protect? So what are you doing about that? And so one thing leads to another, and that's led to an overall very comprehensive plan, which we call Be Ready Utah, and all aspects of Utah to be ready for what? Fill in the blank.
Exactly, anything. Right, and from that Be Ready Utah program, we have 4 pillars within Be Ready Utah now that you're familiar with, of course: Be Ready Families, Be Ready Schools, Be Ready Businesses, and Be Ready Communities. And we do outreach in all 4 of those areas. I think, again, where it started early on with Renee Murphy, I know there's a focus on Be Ready Business and the Ready Your Business program, and a lot of business managers took the courses here at the Division of Emergency Management and received their training and certificate as far as training and readying their business for disasters. Now you mentioned Shakeout, and that's coming up as well. It kind of falls right in line with the anniversary of Be Ready Utah. When you were in office, I believe you designated the 3rd Thursday of April for the Great Utah Shakeout each year. So how did that come about?
Well, people don't realize how many earthquakes we have in Utah. We had a person by the name of the Earthquake Lady.
Yes, Marilyn Hoff.
Marilyn Hoff.
And she still works for us.
Okay.
Yes.
And, I was surprised to find out that it's not just 1 or 2 or 20 or 30, but it's hundreds every year. I don't know how many aftershocks we've had of the earthquake that we had out here in the west part of the valley here last year, but it's probably 1,000 or so. And so we have a lot more earthquakes than people realize, and it's not a matter of if, it's maybe a matter of when are we going to have the big one. And so in anticipation of that, we got to be prepared. And so that's why we put the tabletop exercises and drills to say, let's go through a scenario and see what happens. And I think it helps us. It may not be the salvation of everything, but we're going to be much better prepared if and when we have a big earthquake.
Absolutely. And the more each individual is prepared, the better off we are as a community as a whole in being ready for disasters.
We talk about earthquakes, but we have real examples of emergency services and needs that have happened just in my short tenure here being Lieutenant Governor over these past 16 years. You mentioned the floods we had down in the St. George. We had floods up in the Ogden area. We've had big runoffs and flooding of fields and homes. We've had fires. Significant fires here just a couple of years ago in southern Utah County, where we had to evacuate entire towns and cities to get out of the way of the raging fire. We've had windstorms that look like a war zone a couple of times here from Salt Lake County up north into Bountiful and up into Ogden area. And it's been really quite encouraging to see the people rally around their neighbors, help each other, which is something we do in Utah. We care about our neighbors, those we know and those we don't know. We volunteer, we give of our time and talents and resources, which really what makes our Be Ready program work. It's the people. Now, you guys have to orchestrate it, make sure that the government has a role to play as part of the solution. But again, it doesn't work unless everybody, including the people, are working together in concert with what government is doing. That way we can have really an effective outcome. And we've seen it with these fires, floods, earthquakes, windstorms we've seen here in Utah take place, and the results have been pretty darn good for us.
Absolutely. And really, the legacy that you have left with the Be Ready Utah program, I can tell you that we do outreach to tens of thousands of people every year in our presentations, in our booths, in our social media outreach and engagement, in our materials, and all of those different types of things. And as you just mentioned, our entire goal really is to get people, individuals, families, groups, to take action towards preparedness. We can talk about preparedness all day, but until we start taking some action towards preparedness, making that plan, building that kit, being informed, getting involved, our mantra there, that's when things start to happen and we have that effectiveness. So it's an excellent legacy that you have left with the Be Ready Utah program, among many, many other aspects of our state government.
Two numbers to mention today, but it really is, though, the concept of bottom up rather than top down. Government is best, it's closest to the people. It's more reactive, it's more reflective of the people, it's more efficient. And so this is a good example of a bottom up, have the people really be in charge, of the people be prepared, do their thing, and have government come in and augment that at the city, county, and state level. And then, as I've said, the federal government maybe can come and help pay for some bills, because by the time they get here, we hopefully have got pretty well, have things squared away.
Right, exactly. Well, we appreciate you coming and telling us this story today. We're glad to capture this for posterity, if you will, for a legacy. This would be available for people to come and see, hear you tell the story of creating this great program, the Be Ready Utah program.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention. We've heard that before. And out of difficult circumstances, we created the Be Ready program. And it's worked very well. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be modified and improved. And I'm sure you guys are working towards doing that and making it even better than it is when we decided to have it in its inception. But again, all of us working together, many hands make light work. And really, through crisis, and whether it's fire, floods, earthquake, windstorms, there's a lot of work to be done. And the better we all work together and have the people engaged, the better the results are going to be, the better the outcome.
Exactly. And I know that this program has helped a lot of people. So your vision, your idea has helped a lot of people. I think helped a lot of people with our recent disasters that we've had this past year, 2020, with the Magna quake and the pandemic that we're still in the midst of, and many other disasters. So I know that it's helped a lot of people, and we hope it will continue to help a lot more people. So
we hope they go away. This last year, 2020, we were talking about the plagues of the Old Testament, you know, and we've had earthquake, fire, flood, and the pandemic, and so it has looked like we had the plagues of old Egypt, but we're always going to have those kind of crisis things to happen. That's part of life and part of we have here the existence on this earth. But working together makes it better. We can solve the problems and have a better outcome. So again, for all of us in Utah, let's remember to be ready. Be ready, Utah. For what? Fill in the blank.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time today, Governor Herbert. Appreciate you creating this program for the benefit of all of us here in the state.
Thank you for taking that legacy and raising the bar up, Wade, and we'll continue to do that with the help of the people. So good luck to you and your team.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you for joining us today. That's all the time that we have. If you want more information about the preparedness that we've been talking about today, go to bereadyutah.gov, where you find all kinds of information to prepare for all of the different types of hazards that we face here in Utah. Also go to our Be Ready Utah YouTube channel, where you can see this PrepCast as well as many other Be Ready Utah PrepCasts on different topics of emergency preparedness. And we hope to see you sometime at a Be Ready Utah event. Thanks for watching.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Comment or reply to us on Twitter or Facebook at Be Ready Utah with hashtag BRUPrepcast or in the comments on YouTube. Don't forget to share these videos with your family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers, because anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness.